Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Well, I did say Spurs were going to back Antonio Conte. Whew, 24 hours or so. And that's the reason I thought, you know what, I was going to maybe just do the one video this week. But I thought, so much has happened just in the last 24 hours or so. I thought I probably had to talk about it because there's a lot of good things been happening at Tottenham Hotspur. Oh, praise the Lord, finally. Don't worry, this isn't going to be the length of the last video, which was almost an hour and a half, which when I look back on it, it's like a cinema, like a movie kind of time. I don't know how in the world I managed to speak for that long. Might as well have hired out some cinema and shoved it up on the screen. Can you imagine the poor people going to see like Top Gun Maverick or something, and then this big old mug comes on the screen? Oh, refunds everywhere. But yeah, let's talk about the good stuff. Let's talk about Tottenham Hotspur. Where do I start? It's good stuff. Isn't it nice to be going to a summer kind of being excited about stuff? Last summer was such an absolute horror show that, you know, it feels like this summer's heading in a different direction. Look, it's Tottenham Hotspur. You've seen me be happy in videos before, and then a few days later looking like I wanted to quit everything I do that is associated with Tottenham Hotspur in any way. So, there is always that caveat. It's Tottenham Hotspur. But right now, there's a real excitement within the club at everything that is happening. And let me explain why. I mean, let's start off with the fact that, obviously, we had the big meeting that is to happen. Well, from what I understand, even that has slightly changed. Because, obviously, you know, Conte's been saying throughout the season, I'm going to meet with Daniel Levy and Fabio Paratici, and we're going to discuss whether our paths align, all of this sort of stuff, and essentially hinting that if they weren't, he was going to be off. But do you know what? From what I understand, Spurs, especially with the news of the new £150 million cash injection, which I'm going to talk about, you know, with a bit of detail later. Well, the news is that, and they are going to, as I always said, they are going to fully back Antonio Conte in this transfer window. From what I understand, Spurs are confident enough now that they feel that Antonio Conte is happy with what's being proposed already for next season, that Daniel Levy isn't even going to go to the meeting. So the meeting is going to take place in Italy. Antonio Conte's been over there. I think I said this in the last video. He headed off on Monday to go and be with his wife, Elisabetta, and his daughter Vittoria, spend some quality time with them after working so hard in London with Tottenham. So he's over there, and what I understand is that Fabio Paratici is going to go over and have the meeting with him, and the meeting pretty much will be centred on targets, who Conte wants, who they're going to go for, and it's more of a, I guess, an exciting, forward-thinking planning meeting to really finalise their strategy, rather than the will he, won't he kind of meeting there might have been of trying to convince Conte to stay, which is great news. Look, as always, we've got to add the caveat. It's Antonio Conte. This is a man that he walked out on Juventus, about 4 or 5 weeks into pre-season training. He is a man who, if he feels he isn't getting his way, he will do that. And obviously we saw what happened with Inter last season as well. When they told him they weren't going to be able to deliver what he wanted, he was off. But at the moment, everything seems very happy, and Spurs certainly seem confident that he's happy with what's happening. And thus, yes, this meeting will be more about Paratici and Conte talking about the strategy. And Conte, I think I said this in the last video, is going to be very much given the lead role. What do you want? And let's see if we can make that happen. And obviously now with this cash injection, which is not only the £150 million, but it's whatever they recoup in player sales, and obviously there's Champions League revenue as well. I don't like using this word too much because it's a bit of a corny word, but it's a war chest. It's a transfer war chest. You know, you do get visions of what a transfer war chest actually looks like, but I'm going to use it. I'm going to throw war chest in there because it is. And it is very cool. You know, like I said, I don't know whether Levy will pop up in a Zoom or something with it in this meeting, but in terms of actually attending, it will be Paratici and Conte themselves discussing stuff in the comfort of the homeland of Italy. So yeah, it's really exciting to kind of see what's happened there, and the fact that, yeah, they're going to go big. They're going to go big this summer, and it's when I say go big as well, it's quite interesting to what exactly that means. It's not just let's splash out huge money on transfers. It's kind of a bit of everything. It's going to be some big signings. There's going to be supplemented with free transfers, looking at players that they really like who are also in the final years of their contract, because they want to do a proper rebuild. Conte wants at least 6 new faces. So to be able to do that, you're not going to shove 50 million on 6 different faces. I mean, let's say it could even be as much as 8 new signings, which I know sounds incredible, although it was 6 in Mourinho's first summer, wasn't it? So it's not unheard of. But yeah, you're not going to shove 50 million on every one of those, because then you're looking at silly money. But what they'll do is they'll supplement. He needs to build a big, high-level quality squad that can play across all these competitions. I said it in the last video, Champions League is a whole different beast to anything that they've been doing in the last couple of years. They will need a similar level of quality to be able to handle the Champions League games and then the Premier League games just days later. So yeah, it's going to be sorting out exactly who their targets are. Most of them will have been identified. This is the thing about these big meetings. Conte and Paratici speak every day. They will have spoken about transfers. I think pretty much Conte and Levy speak quite regularly as well. So, it's not going to be, shock names are going to be thrown or anything. It's just going to be a real formal way of getting everything in place, exactly what they want to do and who they're going to go for. And yeah, it's going to be really fascinating to see. I mean, I know certainly that they've got a lot of interest in Eintracht Frankfurt's 29-year-old Filip Kostic. Kostic is their left wing back. Obviously, it would appear with the belief that Sergio Reguilon will probably move on this summer if Spurs can get a value bid for him. Explained about the finances Reguilon before. This is the summer that Spurs need to pay the money for him. So it looks like I think we all get the impression. I think that's kind of the feeling within the club, is that Ryan Sessegnon is the man that Conte sees as the long-term prospect, and he is a more natural wing-back. So with a 21-year-old, just got in the England under-21 squad as well this week, he's back in that again, because he's had a very good end to the season, hasn't he? Him competing with a 29-year-old, plenty of experience. Obviously, Frankfurt just won the Europa League as well. Yeah. I like that. I think I said that maybe in the last video, that it would be good for him to have someone experienced to kind of work with. And obviously, it's a shame if Reguilon does go. But it just, I just don't think that Conte sees him as the future in that position. It just maybe hasn't quite worked from a wing-back perspective for him. Maybe defending. I think maybe Cesc has the edge on him. And we've seen Cesc used in the big games, the Man City matches, the Liverpool matches, and keeping big players in his pocket, essentially. And I think that's what's really impressed Conte, as well as his ability to get forward. So Kostic is certainly one they're going to have a look at. I have a feeling he might be in the last 2 years of his... last year, actually. I think he's in the last year of his contract. So that in itself presents... he's a player that I think Paratici and Conte both like. And obviously, the price is not going to be as high as it would have normally been. So that's one. One they're going to look at. They're going to try and sign, I think. I think there's a lot of interest in him, but we'll see. I think there's a growing confidence that he might be someone that they can bring in this summer. Who else we got? Obviously, Fraser Forster. That looks like that's going to be done now. Medical today, taking place at Hotspur Way. I think it might be tomorrow. It's announced either tomorrow or Friday. But certainly, if the medical's being done today, it suggests potentially a tomorrow announcement. Fraser Forster's an interesting one. I'd said before, Spurs were really keen on Sam Johnson. That looked like it was going to get done. I think a lot had been agreed on that. Certainly as much as you can without kind of crossing any rules when it comes to free transfers in the Premier League and the Championship. But somewhere along the line, something has shifted. And rather than go for Johnson, who perhaps wanted a bit more game time, I don't know how that worked. I honestly don't know the ins and outs. But at some point in recent weeks, they switched to Fraser Forster. I think he's 34, is he? Let's be honest, he's not probably going to be pushing Hugo Lloris. And maybe this is just the feeling, Hugo Lloris is going to be the guaranteed first choice next season. Again, he is. He's still at the top of his game. So Forster's going to come in. He's got Champions League experience. He's homegrown, which is a massive tick of the box. And let's be honest, whoever is the backup keeper this season, injuries aside, is probably only going to play in the Carabao Cup and maybe an FA Cup game or two. Because, as I said before, you don't change things up, especially with your captain and goalkeeper in the Champions League. He plays those games as well, Hugo Lloris. So yeah, maybe you need someone who's willing to have a slightly lesser share of the of it. And so yeah, that looks like that's all going to be tied up. Who else have we got? You've heard me say before that Conte and Paratici both love Alessandro Bastini. Bastoni. That's going to be more difficult. Of course it is. He's very highly rated. I think he's in the last 2 years of his contract, but I think Inter is still wanting pretty big money for him. But maybe that is one of those big signings. I think he's pretty much the one they want to go for in the centre-back department. There's a list. Paratici has big, long lists of names. And like I've said, you will see a million names linked with Spurs. Primarily players probably that play in Serie A or are Italian. But Bastoni, pretty sure from everything I'm hearing, is the one that they want. And let's see. I mean, there's lots of other very good options on that list as well, from what I understand. But yeah, Bastoni, let's see what happens with him, because he would be huge for that back line. Him and Ben Davies fighting out for the left of the back three. You know, that's a big addition to the team, the Inter Milan defender. Interesting, kind of the other end of the scale, very young midfielder from the Championship. I know they really like Alex Scott, 18-year-old, plays for Bristol City. He primarily plays on the right midfielder, but he can also play through the centre. He's played 38 times in the Championship last season. I think he scored 4, got 2 assists. I wrote it down somewhere. Yes, that's what I put. At the moment, Bristol City's valuation of him is a little bit higher than Spurs want to pay, so there's no movement on that right now. But maybe keep an eye on that one, because he is a player they like. And I'm not entirely sure how that works with him, whether he's someone that comes in straight away, whether he goes back out on loan if they can get him. But by all accounts, very talented player. Certainly wouldn't be an under-23s player. You know, he is a guy that has started a lot of those 38 matches in the Championship as well. So perhaps they do one of those where he sticks around for the first 6 months, and then maybe at January they think about a loan if he's not getting the game time. But yeah, no, keep an eye on him, Alex Scott at Bristol. They do certainly really like him. But yeah, so transfers are exciting. There's going to be lots more. We'll talk about these. I'm not going to bog down this video by just talking about names here and there, but they're the kind of ones that just sprung to my head. But one of them, maybe the most important things that's coming out of all of this as well, is that I understand, I've spoken to a few people within Harry Kane's camp, people that know him really well, and everything I'm getting back is that he is very excited about everything that's happening. And, you know, there's no intention from his side, with everything that's going on, to be even thinking about moving away this summer. His sole intention, it's always been his intention. He's always made no secret about this. He wants to win trophies, major trophies with Tottenham. That's it. That's his primary focus. If he can do that, that's what he wants to do. There was a feeling last summer that maybe the club was lacking in direction and ambition, and that was why you saw him seriously considering his future. And I think probably had Man City been able to agree with a deal with Spurs, then I think he probably would accept it, because he felt, disillusioned with what was happening. And I think, let's be honest, we all did. And I understand that point of view, certainly. But here we go, 12 months later, and from everything I'm hearing, he loves Conte, absolutely adores working for him, thinks he's just been... Essentially, he's been the show. Conte has been the show of ambition from Tottenham that Kane wanted. And then with everything, the money that's now being pumped in as well, he's really excited about what comes next. And, he really wants to beat Jimmy Greaves' record, become the club's all-time top scorer, and then some. I think he wants to go way past that, from what I'm being told. It's about now Spurs showing this ambition and using this money wisely, because Fabio Paratici is being tasked with assembling a team, a squad I should state, not a team, a squad that can compete at the top and can help Conte win trophies for Tottenham. And that's what Kane wants. And, I understand there's no talks at this current stage of a new deal for Kane, but he certainly would be open to it if this is the path Spurs are going on it. If Spurs are going to continue this line of ambition, then, he's got 2 years left on his deal, then definitely he would be open to a new contract if Spurs continue down this line of the ambition that they're showing this summer. So that's all great news as well. You know, you've got that, you've got Sonny flying, you've got Romero, Kulusevski, Bentancur all proving to be terrific purchases as well. Isn't it wonderful to be approaching this summer with real excitement? It's fantastic. So let's talk about the £150 million as well. I heard about that literally not long before it was about to be announced. I was trying to dig around and it was like, oh, here we go, it's been announced anyway. But itself, what it is, it's quite fascinating kind of if you break it down as well. It's one of those where, look, at the end of the day, it's brilliant news for Spurs fans. It's fantastic news for Spurs fans. It's a great PR move as well for the club. It looks great. It looks great to everyone concerned. I think there is also an element, from what I've been told by people far more financially intelligent than I am, that it's quite a clever move from ENIC as well, and we'll get to that in a moment. But the main thing is, key headline stuff for us, that's all we should really care about, the fans and myself reporting on it all, is that the bulk of that £150 million is going to go towards the summer transfer war chest. I know it said in the statement, which I'm going to read out so we have all the technical stuff, I know it said it will go towards on-pitch and off-pitch stuff, I think it said. But I'm told the bulk of that, pretty much all of it, is going on transfers. So yeah, like I said earlier, you mix that in with funds from selling players, you mix that in with Champions League revenue, Spurs will be able to go out there and make a real difference to the squad this summer. It is exciting stuff. So, I mean, how do I put this? Right, so actually, shall I read the technical stuff as well? Let's. This is exactly what Spurs said. So you've got the exact information, not me paraphrasing anything. So it is a capital increase of up to £150 million from majority shareholder ENIC Sports Incorporated via the issue of convertible A shares and accompanying warrants. The equity injection provides the Premier League club with greater financial flexibility and the ability to further invest on and off the pitch. The investment represents permanent capital with no ongoing interest cost to the club and which may be drawn in tranches until the end of the year. The club's independent directors have benefited from its majority shareholders' ability to invest directly, swiftly, and without the extensive due diligence and documentation involved in third-party funding. Under the agreed structure, the A shares can be converted into ordinary shares. The number of ordinary shares granted to ENIC as a result of the capital increase will vary depending on when the A ordinary shares are converted. Stay with me because there's more stuff in here that you need to know. When the warrants are exercised and the valuations at the time. If drawn in full and based on assumptions regarding the above, ENIC's ownership of the club could see an increase from its current level of 85.6% to circa 87.5% on conversion. Any dilutive impact is dependent on the number of shares granted and will be shared by all shareholders proportionately and principally by ENIC, the majority shareholder. So Daniel Levy's little quote that was tagged on as well. The delivery of a world-class home was always a key building block in driving diversified revenues to enable us to invest in the teams and support our ambitions to be consistently competing at the highest levels of European football. Additional capital from ENIC will now enable further investment in the club at an important time. Right, so that's all brilliant. It's all good. It's all good. Don't worry about the figures and all that sort of stuff. Essentially, bottom line for Tottenham, in the medium term, the club has a lot more money to spend. A lot more money to spend. And like I say, it's all going on that transfer window, which is huge. Obviously, they've spent fair amounts before, summer of 2019. It's about getting it right this summer. That's going to be the crucial part now the money's there. So the money itself, from what we understand, it sounds like ENIC have kind of taken a loan of sorts to be able to do this. It's not, I've seen jokes about Joe Lewis has sold one of his paintings or whatever. No, that it appears to be that this is money that's been raised through kind of finance. But obviously, how do I put this? It's not the club that's liable for that. That's ENIC. That's ENIC's responsibility. That's their thing to pay off, whatever. The reason I said before it is quite clever is that some, like I say, financially intelligent people, far, far, far cleverer than I, have said that in a way, I've used this expression a lot, that Spurs and Daniel Levy have to speculate to accumulate. That's pretty much exactly what they've done here. So by doing this and this whole exercise, which is quite complicated, I'm not going to be able to go into it because I'll probably mess up the actual explanation of it, but the whole idea of this money and the shares involvement and the increase in ownership that would come from it, essentially, from what I've told by, like I say, financial types, if it were to come to pass that, let's say, ENIC sold the club within, however a certain amount of time, then the amount of extra shares that they're likely to get, percentage control of the club, will far exceed the £150 million. I think someone told me that it potentially could get double that back with that extra little bit of percentage. So it's a clever thing. These aren't people that just make crazy, let's throw money at this decisions. But actually, in a business sense, it makes sense for them if they were to sell. And I also think in a business sense, giving money to a man who clearly knows what to do with a football club that is well assembled and well, financed, you're also raising the value of your own stock. So it's all this kind of circle that, I don't know why my circle is going in different directions, but my circle, it all kind of feeds itself. And ultimately, it's a logical investment, I think is probably the best way to put it. So, yeah. It's some people have asked me, did they need to announce this like this grandly and publicly? Because of the fear is that other clubs look at that and go, well, you got loads of money, he's double that cost. I think they had to put out some kind of announcement. I don't think it had to be so grand. I think it maybe could have been hidden away somewhere. But I think doing so probably is more positive than it brings negative things. It's a very public statement to say, Antonio, we've got your back. And it kind of puts the ball back into his side of the court. So essentially now, he's got everything in place for him to do what he wants to do at Tottenham next season. And then if he still decides to walk away, it kind of then starts to reflect on him more than anything. And also, I was speaking about this with another journalist the other day, I do wonder how it looks for other clubs who would then look to hire him, that, it's a pattern, isn't it, of him, would be a pattern of him walking away. But like I say, I'm kind of going down a road that, it's all very hypothetical because the club at the moment, they're very confident right now that he is happy with what's happening and what's about to happen as well. So we will see. Obviously, the proof will be in the pudding of the signings and who they get in and who, if they want, he wants. And we'll swiftly know. Like I've probably said this before, but when we went on the pre-season tour to Singapore and Shanghai, when we were in Singapore that year, 2019, Posh was not happy. He was not happy. He made it very clear. You could see that he was not happy with the transfer business that had been done. I think it was only Tongi at that point, and he'd wanted more. And he made it very clear. His face was like thunder in every press conference. He was perfectly fine when the cameras were off, but in the press conference, it was very much a public, I'm not impressed. And we'll know in Korea this summer, what is it, only a month away, whether Conte is happy or not, because I think even more so than Poch, he will quite honestly say if he's not. So yeah, we'll see. But it's really exciting. It is. And in terms of other clubs putting up their prices, I think they do that for Premier League clubs anyway. I think they know Premier League clubs have got a lot more money to spend than other clubs. And it's really interesting, we've pointed out, haven't we, in the last year or so, that while a lot of other clubs have had financial fair play issues, Spurs don't. I think I saw a table once, there was something like 400 million below their financial fair play limit, which I think some people took to mean they have 400 million to spend. It wasn't that, but it was that they had that ceiling where they were able to do it. And that's why this £150 million coming in doesn't even make a dent in that. So it's essentially their net spend, isn't it? It's the amount of money they've been able to bring in over the years, and obviously the increased revenue, like we said in the last video, of the stadium, a full stadium for a year, and the projected revenue of what you're going to bring in from that, all the events there. Oh, things are looking up. Things are looking up. It's fantastic. It really is exciting, and yeah. So we'll see. Some people in the comments I noticed were saying, "Oh, thanks for all this. Have a lovely summer and all that." I'll be here every week. Don't worry. I'll be here every week. I'm still going to do these videos every week as long as I can. So anything horrible happens to me, I will be doing these videos every week. So don't worry. If you were thinking I was going to have a summer off, which I know some people probably like because stuff seems to happen. I mean, technically a day off today. And I was finding out this bits and pieces about Conte and Kane and everything. But yeah, no, I'll be here every week. We'll be talking lots of transfers. We'll be talking about various things. Also, good news today. Dane Scarlett signed a new deal, 2026. They've got so much hope for him, the club. It's, Conte. I love the way that Conte. You could see there was a moment in the season when Conte was like, "This kid's good." He is. He's not quite ready yet for the Premier League in terms of Spurs. He is still learning. He's been soaking up everyone behind the scenes says he's been learning and soaking up everything from Kane and Son. It looks very likely he'll be heading off on loan next season, which will be perfect timing for him. He's 18 now. Physically, he's growing up. I think you might have seen me say, I watched the under-23s match a couple of weeks back at the stadium. I think it was against Brighton, wasn't it? Was it 0-0? Although he didn't have the greatest of games, physically, he looks like a first-team player among the under-23s. He did. He is definitely, they've worked on his physique, and that will benefit his hold-up play. And now it'll be interesting to see what level they send him to. Does he go into the Championship, which, can be a bit of a tough first step. We saw that with Troy Parrott, but then if they believe in him enough, maybe they do. I don't know whether it would be a promoted, Premier League side or not. That's a big kind of thing to chuck him into. You never know. It might be. But yeah, I think both he and Alfie Devine will both head out on loan next season. With Alfie, I think they've had a few offers from Championship sides, or certainly interest from Championship sides. But I think the belief is that League One might be better for him to really flourish and develop. And like I say, we see this with Troy Parrott. Troy Parrott has been terrific, especially the second half of this season for MK Dons in League One. And it's not always about chucking them straight into the highest level you possibly can get for them. Sometimes it's about picking the right club. And that will be crucial with Dane. It's get him to a club where he's going to play week in, week out. There has to be some kind of almost guarantees of that as much as you can in football. Get a January recall loan clause in there as well, I'd say, just in case it doesn't work out for some reason. Niall John, second half of the season at Charlton, didn't play a single minute for them. Utter waste of everyone's time. So you've got to, I think, have that. Most loan Spurs do have January clauses in them. But that's great for him. And a new deal, signing a new deal pretty much every summer at the moment, Dane. And that ties him down for the next 4 years. And hopefully we'll be talking about many new contracts signed for Dane, because I think he'll be a big part of Tottenham's future. As long as he keeps his head down, works hard, keeps listening to what everyone's saying. He's a very grounded young man, very quiet, studious, listens to what everyone's saying. As long as he keeps in that kind of vein, he'll be fine. It's quite funny. Apparently, I always kind of get the impression, and I'm told this as well, that he and Alfie are very different. Alfie Devine is the louder one, is the more confident one. You see that on the pitch. You can see the way he plays. He's very confident. He's got little shades of a little bit of a Grealish about him, the way he plays, the way he's confident. I mean, the way, I think I said this before in the under-23s game. I watched him come back, and he kept drifting back into an anchorman role and just telling all these older players where to go. And he was like, I've got this kind of thing. So it's quite interesting. Both incredibly talented players, but both, one's maybe slightly more extroverted and the other more introverted, but both with very bright futures. I do wonder whether we'll see a new contract for Alfie soon as well. I wouldn't be stunned if that happens as well. Who else we got? Obviously, I said Ryan Sessions in the under-21s. Eric Dyer wasn't in the England squad. I don't know. I don't understand that. I listened to Gareth Southgate's explanation. It was about he knows what Eric Dyer can do, and it was more about seeing younger players. So you've got one of the most in-form England centre-backs right now, playing a starring role, quite frankly, being crucial to Spurs, keeping a load of clean sheets towards the end of the season as well. Big matches, played incredibly well. And, and if England do play with a back three, I can't see who else you'd want in the centre of that back three. But, hey, who am I to tell the England manager what to do? But I just found that a very strange one. But there you go. We've had a departure from Spurs. Kakpa Kulowicz, young goalkeeper you might have heard me talking about doing like the loan roundups and stuff. He was at Potters Bar Town for the last second half of the season. He's left the club after 11 years. I think that we'll see more go when that retained list is put up in a couple of days' time. Like I say, he's been there for 11 years. He was on the bench, I think not on the bench. He was third goalkeeper for the Liverpool game in December at home, which was a big day for him. I think he was also third keeper for Sheffield United match. Was it maybe last season? Or was it a little bit before? I remember seeing him warming up with Michel Vorm. So whenever Michel Vorm was here, actually that might have been the one before. But yeah, he's had first team involvement in that respect. Mostly obviously played for under 23s and under 18s. But yeah, he goes on his way and hopefully keeps it going with his professional career. Actually, on the goalkeeper side of things, obviously with Forster coming in, Galini, he's going to head back to Italy. It looks to be the way. They're not going to splash out 11 million or so and bringing him in permanently. And when you've got a homegrown player, and it sorts out part of that side of things as well. But quite interestingly, he put a photo on his Instagram a couple of days ago on his Instagram story that was a photo of all the lads in the Spurs players on the bus, on the coach, coming back from the Norwich match. And it just said in the top corner, something like, "Thank you, boys." And I just thought it was really nice. It was nice because it's been a difficult season for him. He's a guy that was used to playing more matches at Atalanta, albeit he was sharing first-team duties at times last season. But, he's come in and obviously it's been very different for him. And I know this is a cliche, and I know people say you don't bring people in just to be like, good behind the scenes. But that's what he is. Apparently he was a big presence in the dressing room, was really a bit like Joe Hart was in terms of really pushed on the other players. Wasn't a disruptive influence at all because he wasn't playing. Was really behind people, really helped everyone, made some great friendships, a real character. And like I say, that's kind of, I think, what they're trying to do with Forster, because everything I've heard about him is that, he's got a really good character about him. And obviously he is homegrown, he's got his Champions League experience, he's got plenty of experience playing games. Like I say, I think he's got a mistake in him. I do think he's not probably going to push Lloris, but in terms of being a guy that is there to guide the younger players, to help, to be an imposing presence for these cup matches he'll probably play in, and like I say, behind the scenes being someone that really does help out and push everyone else on, you need characters like that in your dressing room, and I think he will bring that in. But yeah, but sad to see Galini go in that respect as well, and he's clearly very well liked. Other little bits before I head off. Obviously, you would have seen Sonny's reception going back to Korea with the golden boot. That was so cool. It was just it's just incredible. That's why one of the reasons I cannot wait to go to Korea in July, because just to see firsthand what it's like in his homeland when he's there with everyone. It's just seeing him even going back to the airport was amazing. Like the hundreds upon hundreds of fans waiting for him. The paparazzi, whatever the Korean version of that is, all the cameramen. There were so many of them. He did a nice little speech in the dressing room we've seen since. Conte, I've heard his speech. And I'm pretty sure when Conte says something about just a couple of words to start it, I'm pretty sure you hear Sonny going, 2 days off, in the background. And it's like, it's funny, but it's the end of the season. It makes Conte crack up. But yeah, the season's over, Sonny. You're not really needing 2 days off. I'm guessing that's a joke about... I think when Conte, he would promise the team, well, I know he did, he would promise the team days off if they won. And I'm guessing that was a little joke, because that's probably something maybe he'd shouted out in the past before in the dressing room. But you just saw the atmosphere, the camaraderie, the spirit that is in that club right now. It's getting somewhere. And hopefully with all of this to come, all of the excitement of this summer, that only builds and builds. And hopefully Spurs can put a few noses out of joining that Premier League and the Champions League as well. Like I say, Conte is not a man who's just in it to compete. He's in it to win things. And I'm really fascinated to see where things go now. And I'll admit, we're really excited. All the journalists that are covering Spurs, they're all really excited. You can tell. It's this real kind of thought about, next season's going to be excellent kind of thing. And even this summer is going to be just... I think there's going to be a lot to report on, let's put it that way. So fingers crossed it all stays in this vein. We don't have a sudden change of heart from Conte. I'm hoping it doesn't, because like I said before, the club, it's being designed and built around him. He is probably maybe that he hasn't had anywhere else. He's going to have the chance to shape what a football club looks like, and a football club with money to spend. Wow. Football club with money to spend. How often you've heard me in the years saying there's not too much to spend because They weren't. They were putting it towards building a stadium and things like this. So much better. So much better this way. Right, let's see how it goes. I'm going to head off. Like I said, this wasn't going to be one of those long videos. Just a shorter one to try and get some things out about what's changed recently in just 24 hours. And yeah, hopefully we'll have Fraser Forster as the first signing of the summer soon. And I think you'll see a fair few of signings done before that tour to Korea as well. I think that will be part of what Conte wants in this meeting in Italy you have with Paratici. So fingers crossed it all stays in this vein. I'm going to head off, enjoy the rest of what's left of my day off, and stay safe, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.